Hello and welcome back to the Hats We Wear. I'm Beth Chifano, and today I have the honor of speaking with David Cleveland. And he's going to talk about the hats he wears, any struggles that come with those hats, and how he's overcome them, whether they're current hats or hats that he's had in the past. So welcome, David. I'm happy to have you.
Thank you, Beth, and the honor is all mine, I assure you.
So tell me, what hats do you think you're wearing right now in this present time?
Well, my scalp is getting burned because I'm not sure I have a hat on right now. But it's interesting to me because as I was trying to come up with some simple answers to that, um, I realized how deep down the rabbit hole even this question could go. Um, there's
But
a
you're a
lot to it.
father, right? That's a hat that you wear. You're a father.
That is a Yes, and
Yeah.
as a middle-aged male, I have worn or am wearing all the maybe the common hats. I am a father.
Mhm.
I am a grandfather. I am a son. I was a husband. I'm not now. But even within those hats, there was hats within the hats,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
For instance, for years I was, well, I'm still a father, but my kids are grown up, so they're no longer dependents. But and that's a separate hat in itself. Now I'm a parent to grown up kids. I have four daughters, and but even though I'm still their father, that particular hat has changed because I'm in the backseat of their life now. I'm not the driver
Mhm.
of the car, that controlled them and held things in check for them. Now I'm just the backseat. So even though I still have the respect of my children, I don't determine their daily lives. And even when I did, I was thinking about this. I was a single parent, so I wore a hat with two brims.
Yeah.
I was a breadwinner and a nurturer.
Mhm.
And in the typical, well, I wouldn't say typical, the ideal family of what we think of as the ideal family, there's two parents, and oftentimes one is a breadwinner and one is a nurturer, and there may be a lot of overlap, obviously between them. But there are sometimes just differentiations in the roles, and my particular role was to be both a nurturer and a breadwinner, and sometimes it's hard to come to grips with that and realize that you have to be both.
Was it a struggle to be a nurturer and a breadwinner at the same time, or is that part of your personality? Are you normally naturally just a nurturing male, or was it like, oh, I have to really be cognizant of how I'm nurturing my girls? Because you were raising four girls, you weren't raising boys.
Right,
You were
right,
raising girls, which is obviously a different gender than yours and different struggles with it.
right.
How did you handle the fact that you had to do both?
That's a good question. The breadwinner aspect is just a no-brainer. It's just what you've got to do. Um, the nurturer, maybe a little bit of both. Maybe my personality lends itself to being more nurturing than, I don't know, some men. Um, but also just the recognition of the need, I think, turned me into more of a nurturer. That these girls needed stability in their lives, and they really weren't getting it from the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And they needed compassion and understanding. And I mean, I learned a lot about girls, obviously, from having girls.
Yeah.
So I think just the awareness that they needed nurturing turned me more into a nurturer, no matter what my base personality is. Definitely the recognition of the need turned me into a better nurturer.
Okay. So overcoming it was just like a natural progression because you noticed that they needed it and you did it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so how has that hat changed now with the girls? How much different is, I mean, you said it was already different. Obviously, they're
Mm-hmm.
grown. But what do you
Mhm.
feel like your hat is now as a dad?
A confidant and an encourager, perhaps more so than anything else.
Mhm.
My children they're smart and they're educated and they've developed their own value system. So I really can't influence them anymore, and that's one of the things I struggle with. Um,
How
there are
so? How is
lessons.
that a struggle?
Well, because there's as parents, we look back in retrospect and we see a lot of things that we probably should have done differently.
Mhm.
And I witness my children raising their children, and I kind of sometimes grit my teeth because I think, oh, I don't know that that's the right way. I understand,
Yeah.
we're all ignorant going through the process, and then once we learn the process, it's too late because it doesn't apply to us anymore.
Exactly.
So, instead of telling them what I think, sometimes I just have to take a step back, grit my teeth, and allow them to tell me what they think.
Mhm.
And if I give them that space, they're more inclined to listen. But certainly, the hat of being a guiding father has come off. And I do struggle with that particular hat. It's easy to be a grandfather. Okay, so that's where I'm at now. That's the hat, one of the hats that I wear. Um, and that really hasn't changed much. I'm not sure how much that's going to change.
I wonder too if because you were an abnormality, to be honest with you, there aren't a lot of dads that have to raise their kids. It's usually in society, the vast majority of single parents are women.
Hmm.
Um, raising
Right.
their kids, the ones that have to raise them on their own. Obviously not all, but a lot of them. So I wonder if that's part of the struggle that you have now with grown kids because you were so involved. You had to be so involved for so long. um I wonder how it would be
Yeah.
if you weren't, like if you had they had their mother in their life at the same time, if you'd feel the same way. It's just an interesting. I just wonder how many listeners can understand where you're coming from, where it's hard to
Yeah.
go and it's hard to let them make their own mistakes.
Oh, I think most parents, whether they're mothers or fathers, can identify with that. Um, True, most single parents are mothers, because I think mothers are the more biologically natural nurturers. But regardless, and I think this is a trap that single parents fall into. I certainly did. My kids became my center of gravity,
Mm,
and
yeah.
my whole world revolved around them, and that's maybe was necessary, but at the same time, it kind of overbalances you because when they leave, which they ultimately do, then my world collapsed and I didn't know who I was anymore. And sometimes what we think of as the ideal older couple sitting on the rocking chairs on their porch and reminiscing together about their kids, and they still have each other because their lives were intertwined with each other and the kids were part of it. But when your kids are all your life,
Yeah.
it I think it's a harder struggle, and it's a bit of a trap that we single parents often fall into.
Do you feel comfortable talking about how you dug out of that? How you found or are finding, you may not have completely found it, but
Sure.
how did you climb out of that hole of, oh my God, my whole world is gone now. Who am I? If I'm not a
Yeah.
dad, who am I?
Yeah, I am currently climbing out of that hole, and it's been a long transition. Um, it's been over 10 years now since my kids grew up and left. So, um, it definitely brought about a midlife crisis. It brought about an identity crisis, and it took a lot of pacing the floor. First of all, it took the recognition of what was going on.
Hmm.
And then it took a lot of pacing the floor to figure out a new purpose, a new direction, a new identity. And I I have found that direction to throw myself into, like you have, by learning how to be a life coach. And this is my new endeavor. Um, there's a lot of things that have changed, not just my being a parent of grown-up kids, but my my career started to fade in its fulfillment for me.
What was your
And
career before? What did you make a living doing before?
I have a small carpentry business. I still do. That's how I make most of my money. But
Hmm.
um, I found a bit of pride and fulfillment in being a craftsman. I was a very good carpenter. Still, I'm a very good carpenter. But that started to fade in my self identity, if you want to call it that, and I started just to get less fulfillment. So at the same time, I dealt with that kind of career crisis and my identity crisis with my kids, and I honestly flailed for a couple of years.
Mm.
And I sold when my kids grew up. After some years, I sold my house. I had a big old house, and it was fantastic, and I loved it. But it turned out to be just echoey and haunted and more expensive than it was worth. So I sold it and paid off all my debts. So I was able to explore my identity crisis, if you will,
Hmm.
without having to work 10 hours a day anymore, which is good. It gave me the freedom and the ability to kind of go through this process. But yeah, it's after years of struggling and flailing, I found a purpose in using my experience and my education that I'm currently receiving, um, to try to uplift and help others achieve some level of understanding themselves.
What else wasn't there something else that you did in that time when you were a carpenter that you're also using some kind of medicine, alternative medicine or?
Yes, yes, I studied and have a master's certificate in medical Qigong, um, which is the Chinese word for basically energy medicine. And most ancient cultures have their own version of energy medicine. Um, but that is kind of it's kind of a woo woo concept that we're not really familiar with in the Western world. But it's basically that we are all um, energy. Our thoughts, our mindset, the traumas that we experience are all energetic presences that take up positions in our body or in our experience. And the reality is that everybody is subject to it. But
Mhm.
the study of Qigong is to learn how to recognize those energies, um, even things like hunches, or good vibes, or things that we don't necessarily have the
Intuition,
terminology.
your
Or
intuition.
terminology to
Hmm.
correct. Intuition is perfect. Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
and even modern science has proven that our intent and our consciousness does have physical manifestation on the world around us, on our own bodies, our own mindset. So the practice of medical qigong, as opposed to qigong that a lot of martial artists use,
Hmm.
is for the benefit of the person. And the practice is understanding, recognizing it, being able to sense this energy, being able to regulate it within our own bodies
Hmm.
to the point where we can um, help others understand it or even manipulate it in our clients' bodies, and to free them from what we would perceive as a negative energy.
Hmm.
So that really, really overlaps a lot in the life coaching. We use words in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, right? But there is a tremendous amount of unseen intention and energy, that really intertwines with the words. So that
How
has
did
helped me
you
a lot too.
how did you find that? How did you come upon that? And at that point in your life, I'm just curious how you actually found it and at what point you found it. Because energy is, I know for myself, when I really started delving into it, it's incredibly healing. The whole process of understanding it, knowing how it
Yes,
moves through your body, knowing how to clear it.
yes.
So I'm interested to see when in your life that showed up and how it helped you.
it was probably close to 15 years ago. One of my best friends is an acupuncturist, and he has a degree in Chinese medicine. He's American, but this is something that fascinated him through his own experience, and he became a Qigong teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And but we were friends before I knew anything about this. But he would tell me stories of his Qigong practice and these weird, amazing things, phenomena that would happen during his sessions. People,
Mm-hmm.
almost like an exorcism. And I would kind of roll my eyes and just say, yeah, yeah, or smile and nod, and but inside I was saying, come on, this is
Yeah.
all kind of wacky. So he said, tell you what, why don't you come to one of my classes for free? I won't even charge you. So I did. And as we were going through the motions, stuff started to click. And I started feeling things. I started feeling the balls of energy between my hands. I could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And others said they could feel it, and just things that confirmed that this was happening. And at the same time, I started to reconcile some of these beliefs with my own Christian foundation, and realized that they were really intertwined. They were not contradictory at all. They were very much intertwined. And that let my mind kind of let go of the preconceptions. And then the more I practiced, just the more I felt, the better I got at it. And yeah, here we are.
I think that's really important to note, the fact that energy work is not contradictory to religion. It goes hand in hand. It's spirit. So
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people think that energy work is all woo-woo and witchcraft and all this craziness, when
And it can be, because witchcraft is that very same thing.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but
but it's
it's
got a
not used
negative
for
connotation. I think it has
exactly that.
negative connotation, and it's really just, it's natural, it's natural. So
Absolutely that.
I love that you pointed that out for any listener that maybe is, Christian or any religion, that thinks that believing in this is against their religion. So
Yes.
I love that you said that.
Yeah.
Um,
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that thought. I mean, the Bible talks about the laying on of hands, right, and people being healed. And there's lots of instances in the Bible where there is an energy transfer, if you want to call it that. And that may be kind of a weird word to use, but it is absolutely not contrary to the scriptures or the word of God.
yeah, yeah. Um, so do you feel like learning that helped you in any way navigate? Because you said that was like 15 years ago and your kids moved out like 10 years ago. So there was a little bit of an overlap from when you learned it to when you still had your kids. Did you draw on any of that, or was it like in the receding parts of your brain that you didn't really
Oh,
draw on?
no, no, I absolutely drew on it. I continue to draw on it. Um, I don't have a Qigong practice like some of my classmates. They actually developed a business doing therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and I never went to that point. But the principles of it have definitely become a paradigm shift in my mind. And so, yeah, absolutely. I don't say I use the practice of it, but I adhere to those principles on a daily basis. Absolutely.
Give me an example of how. So if a listener is not understanding what you mean by those guiding principles, what do you mean by that? How do you use them?
Uh, First of all, I think it's important how we present ourselves, for instance, to a client,
Mm-hmm.
because our energy transcends, transcends space and time. It transcends the computer, and you and I can say the same words. We can even use the same inflection in our voice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a positive energy about what you're doing, and I have a negative energy about what I'm doing, then the effect is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So we all need to be aware that we project energy. we project a vibe that others will intuit, whether we are aware of it or not.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so the great gift to me is the awareness of it. Now I'm aware of how I am seen and understood by others, and
Mm-hmm.
also I give more credence now to my own intuition about what I receive from others. You
Yep.
know, all the all the objective information can logically make sense about a person, what they're saying. But if you're picking up a bad vibe from that person, that's a real thing.
Yeah. Energy
It's
vibration.
not
Yep.
an illusion. It's a real
Yep.
thing.
Yeah. So for the listener, if anyone is uncomfortable in someone else's space, it's their energetic vibration that you're uncomfortable with. It doesn't match yours. So it's a real thing. Listen to it. You know what's
That's correct.
interesting, Dave? When I was taking my energy class last year, we were assigned to do this thing where, and I was a teacher at the time, so of a middle school. So it's a lot of energy going around there. And she said to practice bringing your energy in and letting it out. And she said, notice how people respond to you. So I did it. I consciously brought my energy in towards me and walked down the halls. No one gave me any notice whatsoever. But when I intentionally expanded my energy out from my body in the same exact circumstance, people notice. Hi, how you doing? Good morning. It's amazing what can happen with your intention. Your intention is energy. So I love
Absolutely
that.
true.
I love that you're still using it. How do you think you're going to use that as a neurotransformational coach? Can you incorporate that in your business when you're coaching people?
Absolutely. Um, I think things like authenticity and compassion are extremely important in our business or in life coaching, and that is something that you either project or you withhold,
Mm-hmm.
and you may withhold it unconsciously. And and of course, there's another big factor that I've just really kind of put into words myself, and that is that if we are going to be any sort of encouragement or strength to somebody else or a lifter or an inspiration, we must be strong and healthy. If we're going to give light to somebody, we must be full of light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there's just a huge importance in taking care of ourselves, and that is all three aspects, right? Mind, body, and spirit, because they're all tied together.
Yeah.
And if we are strong in ourselves and we are settled in ourselves and we are self-possessed, then we are in a place to project that upon our clients, give them that gift. And if we are not, then like water flows downhill. The client's own negativity will flow back onto us.
Yep.
So we will only not be helpful, but we may be hurt ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. And the interesting thing about this is I remember the Sean and Michelle saying in our class that you don't have to be completely healed in order to heal, but you have to be on the
Right.
path.
That's right.
So just being, because no one I don't think is completely healed. I don't think any human being is going to ever say that they're completely healed because we're human beings. It's the
That's
it's
right.
the condition that we signed up for when we came here.
That's
But
right.
at least being what you said multiple times in this time, being cognizant, being aware, and
Right.
being willing to do the work will help our clients because they'll say, oh, okay, well, Beth isn't, she doesn't have all her stuff together, but she's on the right path and she knows the way to get there. Well, Dave may not have everything together, but he's on the right path. So I
Right.
think, oh, I think both. I think healing and being on the path of healing is really critical. Really.
Amen. Right. We don't claim to be gurus. We just claim to understand. And
A
we've
guide
added
from
to
the
our
side, right?
understanding. Yeah. Yep. And we've added to our compassion, our understanding, a little knowledge, the knowledge of the exercises that bring people through, the things that change people. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fact we're just on a journey is what makes people relate to us. We're not men on mountaintops dispensing wisdom that we don't understand.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So what what hats do you look forward to putting on in the future? Or are you good where you are right now and you're just playing around with the different hats you
Um,
wear? Or is there one that you really want to try on?
that kind of brings up a good point because um, one of the things I was thinking about was not just the hats we wear, but the hats we used to wear,
Mm-hmm.
the hats we wish we were wearing,
Mm-hmm.
and the hats that we think we're wearing. And oh, there was a time where I wanted to wear the hat of a patriarch, overlooking my clan and or a respected town member, a member of the community. And I find that that's not necessarily my path. I'm a bit more of a wanderer, uh, kind of a lone wolf, and that has its own pros and cons. But I realize that there are hats that I've been craving that are just not my destiny to wear.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Um, and in that regard, I'm also thinking that we don't want to confuse our hats with our identities, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so important to establish with clarity our values and our identity because hats come and go. It's kind of like a vocation, or today's vocation.
Mm-hmm. It's
Hats
just
come
a
and go,
role.
but
It's a role that we
right,
play. Yeah.
right, right. And don't confuse it with your identity.
Mm-hmm.
I have another just kind of a funny story to me about the hat of being a son. Well, first of all, there's two hats of being a son, right? There was the son of being the dependent of my father and remembering him as my daddy, and now I'm my father's caretaker. He's an old man. He's almost 106, and I'm responsible for his care. So I'm still a son, but it's a different hat, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a hat or an identity or what, but when I'm around my family, my kids and my grandkids, I'm the old man of the bunch, right? And they tease me about being old and I can't keep up with everybody necessarily. But then I go visit my dad, and my dad lives in a small private retirement home
Mm-hmm.
with about 13 other residents, and they're all very old. And guess who the spring chicken is?
Yeah.
So I feel like a kid.
Yeah.
I'm running around and fixing their computer issues and helping them move from one place to another. And I feel like a spring chicken,
Uh-huh.
and then I go back to my family and I'm back to the old man.
Oh, that's all. God bless him. He's almost 106. Holy
That's right.
macaroni.
That's right.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is. Even he's astonished and not necessarily very happy about it.
Oh, he's ready to go. He's ready to
He's
be,
ready to go.
he's ready to rest.
That's right. Exactly that.
Oh my gosh. So are there anything else you want to add for our listeners? Or does that feel like
Um,
does that
yeah,
feel complete?
I I think that's pretty complete for me, Beth. I really did enjoy kind of thinking about the ins and outs, and sometimes like I said, our hats are like sometimes it's like the shell game, right?
Hmm.
Hats could just move around and like, okay, who am I now? Where's my identity now?
Absolutely. And I had Amanda on another show, and she was talking about how her hats conflicted, how she had her parent hat and she
Oh,
had her work hat and how they were conflicting.
oh, so true.
So that's another conversation of how the
Yeah,
hats that we wear conflict with other ones and how
right,
we manage
right.
that and navigate it. And it's just that's
Yeah,
why I want to do this podcast. I just wanted to meet people and just talk about what they deal with in their life and how they
Hmm.
what struggles they have and how they handle it, because everyone, although we may have similar hats, the way we deal with them are different.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
I'm a
right.
parent too. I'm a coach too, but it doesn't mean that you and I are going to have the same experience just because we have the same hat that we wear, because we
That's
have
right.
different values, we have different
That's right.
experiences. So I love just chatting with
Yeah.
people and getting their input.
Yeah. I think that the last thing I would say is don't force a hat on your head that doesn't fit,
Oh, I
which is
love
why
that.
it's important. Yeah, it's important to kind of establish to your own self who you are as a person, your core identity, no matter what your job or your house or your marital status, what is your identity? What is your core value? And then make the hats fit that.
Yeah.
Don't try to put somebody else's hat on, or a hat that's not yours or not meant to fit your head.
Well, that's a good segue. So if any listeners are out there and they resonate with what you said and they're not sure of their identity and they want to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, my business name is Life Philosophy. That is LifeFullosophy, which is, of course, the philosophy of living a full life. So lifephilosophy.com is my handle and the name of my website and my client or my coaching business.
Okay, I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can check out your website.
Great. I appreciate that, Beth.
Well, I appreciate you spending time with me. Thank you so much. And
Again, it was
everybody,
my pleasure.
thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on The Hats We Wear.